The Center for African American Public Policy here at Norfolk State University had an idea to bring policymakers, movers, and shakers to you, the community, to discuss issues that impact your communities. On June 28, 2020, 1 year ago, State of the Water radio show was launched. That's right, this is our 1 year anniversary show, and we'd like to thank you, the listeners, for your support. This is State of the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Claville, and we'll be right back with an Encore presentation. Thank you for joining us. It's State of the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Claville, on this beautiful Sunday, June 27, 2021. Thank you for joining us. This is our 1 year anniversary show. That's right, 1 year. 1 year almost to the date, we've launched State of the Water radio show, where we envision to bring movers, shakers, and policymakers, community activists, and others, and listen to the comments coming from you, the audience, the community. And we could not have been here without you. So we, first of all, thank you for your support. And because of this, we like to bring you two Encore interviews. The first will be President Ed Baine. He is the president of Dominion Energy, where he talks about offshore wind energy, a new industry that's coming here and being pioneered by Dominion. I had the fortunate opportunity to go out to the wind energy, offshore energy, to see the turbines off of Virginia Beach. That's right, 25 miles off the coast of Virginia Beach. I was up close looking at the future of clean energy here in Virginia. So sit back and listen to this Encore interview. And today we're going to discuss a topic that, we really don't think about, but to be honest with you, it is, without it, we really can't operate. And we've got no other than the president of Dominion Energy Virginia here to join us on the show, President Ed Baine. President Baine, so glad to have you on State of the Water.
Dr. Claville, thanks for having me. I'm very excited about this conversation.
Same here. Look, just as a note, I want to again mention that Dominion Energy is a phenomenal partner of Norfolk State University and also the Center for African American Public Policy here at Norfolk State University, located in our College of Liberal Arts here. And Dominion has been one to not just invest money into the university through their philanthropic giving, but also to really invest in the students, by the grants that they've given and so forth. So we really thank Dominion for being a great partner, and we recognize that partnership not just over the last year, but over the course of time. President Baine, if you could, tell us a little bit about yourself to the audience, and how did you become president of Dominion Energy Virginia?
Well, it's been a journey, and a lot of folks have helped me along the way, but it started in rural Southside Virginia. I'm a native of Virginia. I grew up in Lunenburg County, raised on a tobacco farm, and, our family has roots there since the days of slavery, and they put in a lot of work and sacrifice for me to be here today. My sister and I are first-generation college kids. I'm an electrical engineer by training, a proud Hokie from Virginia Tech. And, I've had a lot of job opportunities at Dominion Energy. I started as an intern, and, there were people who, saw something in me, gave me an opportunity, and, through a lot of work and opportunities, different jobs, 26 years later, I'm very humbled and honored to be president of the electric utility serving Virginia and Northeast North Carolina.
Absolutely phenomenal. And look, no offense to the Cavaliers who are listening to the station as well, but we're so glad to have a Hokie here on our call today. And I wanted to ask you how you rose from where you grew up to become president of the company, because I think everybody has a unique story, and I think everyone's story has to be told. Because you can clearly inspire the next generation. So I want to get this conversation started about a new initiative that Dominion Energy is engaging upon. It's the Coastal Virginia Offshore Wind Project. Tell us a little bit more about that project.
Definitely. So our customers, the Commonwealth, and other stakeholders expect us to be part of this climate change solution and to build a cleaner energy future. and we're committed to meeting those expectations. So the coastal Virginia offshore wind, it's a transformational project that has really been a decade in the making.
Wow.
And represents a series of firsts for Dominion Energy and the industry as a whole. We just completed our pilot project, which is 2 6-megawatt turbines that we finished at the end of last year, and it's the first project like that installed in federal waters, and the only one developed and owned by an electric utility. And so that gives us the foundation for our larger project. And for the larger project, we expect it to be complete in 2026. It'll be the largest offshore wind project of its kind in the nation.
Wow. And
it represents a multi-billion-dollar investment in clean, renewable energy.
You mentioned several points that we hear a lot in media and news and so forth. You mentioned climate change. What is the impact of climate change on our energy sector itself?
Yeah, so if you think about the impacts, look at Texas as an example and the challenges that it creates from severe weather, and it's just not winter weather. It can be more severe hurricanes, windstorms, etc. And then, as an industry, we've been working very hard to do our part. If you look at our history, we've been moving to a cleaner energy mix, closing coal power stations, building solar, building natural gas, and ultimately building this larger offshore wind project.
Well, you mentioned Texas, and actually I was thinking about Texas when you mentioned climate change. And one of the aspects that we saw is that, they have, diversity of energy, but for some reason, the diversity of energy just didn't work in those in that type of weather. So when we talk about wind energy, why wind energy and not solar and these other quote unquote alternative energies that we have?
Yeah, so we're doing both. If you think about it, this will add a large-scale carbon-free resource to support the Commonwealth's goal of 100% carbon-free energy, electricity by 2025.
Wow.
And by 2045, I'm sorry. And it enhances reliability because the peak wind output occurs at different times in solar. So they complement each other in addition to some of the other fuel sources that we have for generation. So it adds that diversity of energy resources, which is important for the Commonwealth and the region as a whole. In addition to that, this wind energy project will help Virginia become a national leader in offshore wind and creating a domestic supply chain hub anchored here in the Hampton Roads.
Now, you mentioned these turbines, these wind energy fans, and I know the proper word is turbines for them. People talk about the coast of Virginia's coast. I mean, many people come to Virginia Beach saying it's the most gorgeous beach here we have on the East Coast, and people travel from far and wide. And one argument that I've heard against wind energy offshore is that, it's going to destroy the aesthetic look of our beautiful offshore here in Virginia. Can you speak to that aspect of it? What not just the benefit, we mentioned that, to carbon free, but aesthetically, I mean, what type of impact does that have, if any?
Yeah, so I would ask people just to keep in mind that these turbines will be 27 miles off the coast. And so as you look from a visual perspective, there will be days you may be able to see, the top of the turbines, but it's not like something you would build onshore. And as we have more information and visual portrayals of that on our website, people will be able to look at this. But it won't be a significant impact from an aesthetic perspective.
Wow.
Now, we do have to bring the power onshore to power the homes and businesses. And so, we've been engaging with the communities on the transmission routing in the study areas in order for us to build lines back onshore. And so the lines from the turbines to get to shore will be, on the seabed, so you won't see those either. And then we will have to build, a transmission line onshore in order to get to a substation to tie in.
Absolutely. I know you mentioned earlier the monetary investment that Dominion Energy is making into this project, and we know the impacts. We're seeing it, the impacts of climate change for people that thought it was a hoax, and we see it, sea level rise and all that. So we are in search of these alternative clean energies. So ultimately, what is the benefit or some of the benefits for the Commonwealth for us to have this coastal offshore wind power that we have?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, this project will jumpstart the wind energy industry here in Virginia, and it's allowing the Commonwealth to serve as a supply chain hub for the East Coast, because there are other projects that are slated along the East Coast. And it'll create hundreds of jobs, hundreds of millions of dollars in economic output, and millions in tax revenue for the state and localities. But in addition to the economic benefits, as I mentioned before, it serves as a critical resource for meeting the Commonwealth's objective on carbon-free energy by 2045. And just, to give some perspective on that, with delivering almost 9 million megawatt hours of clean renewable energy to the grid, it's like avoiding as much as 5 million tons of carbon dioxide emissions annually, equivalent to taking more than 1 million cars off the road or planting more than 80 million trees.
Wow.
And then, one of the other benefits you mentioned earlier about, our partnership with Norfolk State and others. We're also partnering with local K through 12 schools and colleges to, introduce new curriculum for environmental and STEM education, as well as some research opportunities in the Hampton Roads as well. So we want to keep local students, in the forefront of these new career paths and participate along the way.
As a matter of fact, I wanted to ask you about the engagement with the community that you've done, and education is a huge part of that. And we see how, STEM education, and like we like to call it STEAM education, is evolving every single day. And it looks like the energy sector, in part, is leading the way in how we want to create, consume, distribute, and energy so that we can keep going.
So, to that point, you talked about my background earlier. One, I'm standing here because of God's grace. But
absolutely.
The other part of that is education. I mean, that helped create a path for me to be where I am today, working for Dominion Energy. And, we're committed to education. We're committed to, diversity, equity, and inclusion in everything that we do. And just not because it's the right thing to do, because it's good for business. You have better outcomes. There's better community engagement. You get better, innovative ideas and perspectives, and the solutions that we provide are best for our customers. And, so some of the work we've already started that's broader than just offshore wind. Over the summer we announced $5 million in social justice grants. We announced $25 million to HBCUs like Norfolk State and others, and $10 million in scholarships for minority students wherever they go to school. And then, we will continue to work collaboratively to, help enable workforce development opportunities and the supply chain needed, to ensure those jobs land here in our community.
Absolutely. You're listening to State of the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Claville, here on WNSB Blazing Hot 91 on the campus of Norfolk State University. Today, we have the president of Dominion Energy Virginia, President Ed Baine, and we're talking about this phenomenal new project that Dominion is investing in clean energy for our community, the Commonwealth, and abroad of off-coast Virginia offshore wind project. President Baine, you mentioned education, and I believe that education is the key that helps to unlock every single opportunity that we have. Through exposure, through experience, and you mentioned interning and the like, and again, opening up the path for individuals to learn more about it. As it relates to the African American community, though, and communities of color, energy is a part of all of our lives. And I know that sometimes we get a lot of questions about increased energy costs and energy bills and the like, because that's pretty much at the ground floor. How persons think about Dominion Energy and power companies, as we used to call it back in the day. What, other than the effects to the overall Commonwealth, specifically, what are some of the advantage or benefits of this project, offshore wind energy, to African American communities and poor communities?
Yeah, so I would tell you a couple of things. One, we are focused on having safe, reliable, and affordable, as well as clean energy for our customers in the Commonwealth. And we don't take that for granted. And so as we think about our communities of color, that's front of mind for me. And so we make sure that we do that each and every day. And specifically to this project, there will be opportunities for engagement within education, within our African American and communities of color. In addition, we'll be making sure that as we go through these workforce development opportunities, that there is engagement within our community. So not only do you understand what's coming, but people can be prepared. And then from a supply chain perspective, also having the opportunity for minority businesses to understand what those opportunities will be along the way and how they can participate.
As a matter of fact, we talk about this opportunity, of course, impacting the communities, impacting our climate and the like. But we know that everything comes with, you have to create it. So it comes with jobs and career opportunities. Tell us about the job and career opportunities that this new project will help to create for the Commonwealth.
Yeah, so, if you think about jobs, it's all up and down the stream. There will be direct jobs that are associated with constructing the project as well as operating the wind turbines going forward. But there's also projects all and up and down the supply chain, right? There will be turbines that need to be built.
Right.
There will be foundations that need to be installed. There will need to be people that need to man ships that go out for construction and help with inspections. So there will be significant amount of jobs that are associated all up and down the supply chain. And, there's been estimates of, 900 jobs doing construction, 1,100 jobs doing operation. And, those are estimates right now. And as we get further into the project and, working on our supply chain deals, that'll become clearer. But we're putting information out there today. We've been working with the Hampton Roads Alliance on how businesses can register there, and
right.
Having a series of public meetings and forums to provide information, and on our website on coastalvawind.com more information on workforce development as well.
Now, we know that you mentioned the push and the work that Dominion has done for HBCUs, education, and diversity. As it relates to, now historically we know, and one thing that 2020 has uncovered is the lack of diversity in engaging corporations at the supplier diversity level, at the level of what we call large contracting and so forth. So we talk about jobs and careers, but also is there a push or a mechanism for supplier diversity and for professionals such as architects, general contractors, attorneys to engage Dominion with this new project and to be there on the ground for helping to develop it from that aspect?
Absolutely. So first, I think it's good for people to understand our journey. We've been focused on supplier diversity for over a decade. We've had goals internally on how do we continue to improve our supplier diversity efforts. We've increased the amount of supplier diversity spend over that past decade, but we're not satisfied. There's still plenty of work to do, and some work will be done by primes, right, directly, and there'll be contracts that way. Some will be done as a contractor for some of the folks who are doing some of the bigger work. And, we're making sure there's mechanisms within those contracts so that those suppliers are focused on that as well. And so I think there will be multiple opportunities from that perspective. In addition to that, as I mentioned earlier, we are using, the Hampton Roads Alliance as a mechanism to get more information out related to those opportunities as well. So there will be more to come.
Absolutely, absolutely. Once again, you listen to State of the Water here on WNSB Blazing Hot 91. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Claville, and we're talking with President Edward Baine, who is the president of Dominion Energy Virginia, about this new phenomenal project, exciting project for clean and renewable energy of coastal offshore wind energy. We've been discussing the impact of climate change. We've been discussing the investment that Dominion has been making in this project and the benefits overall to the Commonwealth and the African American community and other communities of color. And this is a very, involved project. I mean, as you stated, this is something that just didn't pop up yesterday. Dominion has been working on this for some time. Can you give us an idea of the type of labor and work that is going into Dominion getting to this point, of launching this project?
Yeah, so it has definitely been a journey. The leases that are being utilized for this project, I think Dominion acquired those leases offshore in the 2012-2013 timeframe.
Oh, wow.
And we've been working with many stakeholders on the pilot project that ultimately came to fruition at the end of last year, the 2 test turbines, and we're very proud of that because, as I mentioned earlier, that's the first two offshore wind turbines that are in federal waters. So it's first of its kind. And they've been performing well, which gives us confidence about building the bigger project. And there's been a lot of different stakeholders, both from a state and a federal perspective, that have helped us get to this journey, get to this point in the journey. And there's still plenty of work to do. If you think about now, it's 2021. We will be working for all the reviews and permits and other work that needs to be done. Construction really started in earnest late 22, early 23, and then, building out in phases over 24, 25, 26. So it's still a lot of work to be done to finish the project, but confident that we'll get it done and be able to deliver this clean energy for the Commonwealth.
Absolutely. Can you give us an idea? And I'm trying to look at, I'm envisioning these turbines, and I've done, we've had some engagement. I've talked with members from Dominion, and I've been reviewing the postcards and the information about this issue. And I see how huge these things are. I mean, it's just not like a little fan that's out there. These are massive structures, and God bless those guys and workers, employees that go up to actually repair those turbines above the water. I know it's a great view, but that's a little bit too high for me. But how many of these mechanisms, these structures, does Dominion envision having offshore at the completion of this project?
Yeah, so for the commercial project, there will be 188 14-megawatt wind turbines.
Wow.
And so that's over 2,600 megawatts of capacity, which if you translate it into how many homes, that's enough to power up to 660,000 homes. And they are tall. They'll be more than 800 feet tall.
Right.
But again, I just remind folks that they're 27 miles off the coast. So from a visibility perspective, not what you would expect. So,
right.
But yeah, they're tall. They're definitely tall.
Absolutely. And look, I just left my eye doctor, so I don't think I'll be able to see them anyway, as I get better. Not as I get older, but as I get better. I mentioned earlier in our discussion, why wind energy and not solar, because I think a lot of people don't really understand how diversified Dominion energy is. So you mentioned we are doing solar and also wind, and of course traditional methods of creating energy and delivering it to the customers. What percentage of renewable energy, and more specifically this wind energy, will be a part of Dominion's total delivery of energy to customers in Virginia?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so the Commonwealth and the General Assembly has been very clear on what the mandate is for us. In the Virginia Clean Economy Act that was passed in 2020, it calls for over 16,000 megawatts of solar, 5,200 megawatts of offshore wind, and 2,700 megawatts of battery storage. And so on the solar piece, we'll build over 65% of that, and we'll integrate the rest into our grid. So all 16,000 megawatts will serve our customers. We're building the first 2,600 megawatts of the offshore wind, and we'll also be working on the batteries. So, and you need it all in order for the systems to work. As you've seen outcomes in different places across the nation,
right.
We need to make sure that we have a diverse generation mix. We need to make sure that we continue to modernize and have a resilient grid, and ultimately, we need to make sure that we deliver for our customers. Our customers are expecting us to be there 24/7, 365, and that's our charge.
Absolutely, absolutely. And for any of us that you click the switch at home, you expect energy to be there. You expect the lights to come on. And for any of us that for some reason our power goes out, it kind of disrupts our entire day. Yeah. So our hearts go out to those who are experiencing power outages in our neighboring states. But that brings me to one of my last questions is, when you talk about creating this energy and batteries and packaging, is this type of energy that's generated by the wind, is it able to be sold and used by other states that don't have the same type of mechanism to create wind power? So
here's what I would tell you. We are in part of the PJM market, which that's a market that covers roughly 13 states. And, there are days where we sell energy into the market, and, that may get used in some other area. And there may be times where we're importing power from another area. But I'll just tell you this, in a regulated environment where we're a vertically integrated utility, it's my charge, it's our charge to make sure we're taking care of the Commonwealth first.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, I wanted to make sure that our listeners understood the amount of work that's going in to ensure that when you flip the switch, everything is coming on, and that Dominion is working hard to not just give you energy, but also to protect the environment and creating a new stream of opportunities, jobs, careers for the entire Commonwealth. So definitely it's a heavy lift, and we've had a chance to engage, and I know it's a labor of love for you to be a part of this project and lead the company as you're leading it here in the Commonwealth. President Baine, do you have any last words for us before we end our interview? I can't believe it's been already a half hour.
I know the time has flown by, but I'll just say this. One, thank you for having me. Thanks for what you do and for what Norfolk State does for our kids and our community. This is a very significant project for us. We're engaging the community, trying to get input so that we can do it in the most, the best way as we, for our customers and the communities that we have to build a project. And there'll be more information to come.
Absolutely.
As we move through. And so be glad to, provide that information. And people can visit our coastalvawind.com website to get more information as well.
Absolutely. And this won't be the last time that we engage. We've got some more public engagements that we're going to partner with, that we're going to do. So we'll announce those in the future. But also, as you just stated, President Baine, if you want to learn more about and keep up with this project, just simply go to www.coastalvawind.com. That's coastalvawind.com. Also, you can contact and speak with a project team member if you're interested in these opportunities from a job or career standpoint at 844-319-2065. That's 844-319-2065. Or you can email at info@coastalvawind.com. And again, we'll place this on our website. President Baine, it's been a pleasure, and we look forward to our next time.
Thank you.
Take
care.
Welcome back. Thank you again for joining us here on Stay of the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Claville, and thank you for joining us for our 1-year anniversary show. That's right, 1 year we've been here bringing policymakers, movers and shakers to you, the community. Without your support, we wouldn't be here today. So we're bringing you 2 Encore interviews. The first interview was with President Ed Baine, president of Dominion Energy. Now we have an Encore interview with Governor Ralph Northam. That's right. Governor Ralph Northam here to talk about his time in office, dealing with COVID, the recovery, and his future plans. Thank you again for joining us here on State of Water. This is our Encore presentation of Governor Northam. We have with us Governor Ralph Northam, who is here to join us to talk about the reopening of Virginia, highlights of his administration, and the importance to vote in this June primary. Governor Northam, thank you so much for joining us on State of the Water.
Hey, Eric, it's good to be with you. Thanks so much for having me. And, as I always like to say, behold the green and gold. I hope the Spartans and everybody listening today is safe and healthy. And as you said, we're looking forward to getting back to as near normal as we can. It's been a tough year for everybody, but, Virginia's done well overall. And I'm pleased with where we are right now and look forward to good things happening.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We were talking before the show, and I was saying, I can't believe it's been almost 4 years, since you took the oath of office. My family and I, Michelle and the 2 boys, Ian and Ethan, we were fortunate enough to be there at the inauguration and seeing you take that oath. And it was just it was a cold day. It was a phenomenal day. And can you believe that 4 years have gone by so fast?
Yeah, it is. It's been going by pretty quickly, but what a privilege this has been to serve the Commonwealth for me and my wife Pam, and had so many friends that have been supportive, and we've had a majority in the House and Senate, and we've really been able to get a lot of good things done. I've got about 6 months left, and still have a lot of things that we want to get accomplished. So we're going to stay busy for the next 6 months, but I what I want, Eric, is when I finally turn the key over to whoever the next governor is and their administration, I want Virginia to be in as good a shape as it can be. And so I'm going to strive to do that every day until my time is up here at the end of the year.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, when we talk about your time as governor, every governor tends to deal with a crisis. That's been kind of the theme that we've seen in recent history, whether it be the Virginia Tech shooting or whether it be, the march in Charlottesville. It was something that we saw during your time period that not only affected Virginia, but affected the entire world. And that was a global pandemic. Being a physician like you are, a surgeon, a health professional, what was your thought when you heard that this pandemic was here?
Well, you're exactly right, Eric. There had been a number of crises, and you mentioned Charlottesville. I just before we get to the pandemic, I was lieutenant governor, actually running for governor in August of 2017 when that tragedy happened, and white supremacists marching into a beautiful city in Virginia where University of Virginia is, spewing their hatred and bigotry, and of course, we lost several lives, and that really started a process in Virginia of equity and embracing diversity, and a lot of talk about the Confederacy and the history in Virginia, and the monuments and statues of most of them have come down now, and then obviously we had the tremendous tragedy in Minneapolis, during my governor's term, and that certainly was cause for just a lot of unrest, and that was justifiably so. And so we've been able to do a lot of criminal justice reform, and we can talk about that during your show. But it's been a time when it's been very difficult for Virginians, and again I think we've been able to listen and learn a lot from what happened, and really make some good changes to make Virginia, more diverse, and what's so important to me is to make Virginia inclusive. And so I'm proud of, what's happened in Virginia over the last few years, what we've been able to get accomplished. But regarding the pandemic, Eric, our first case was March the 7th, over a year ago. And wow, what a journey this has been. And the pandemic's been really hard on Virginians. I think overall we're in a much better place today, but businesses have been lost. People have lost their homes, their employment. We had over 1.5 million Virginians who applied for unemployment, and we've done everything we can to try to help them. As you may remember, when all this pandemic started, there was absolutely no leadership coming out of Washington.
Right.
Matter of fact, the president said that, it would go away like a miracle. Everybody remembers that. Well, it didn't go away like a miracle, and said everybody could get a test, and that was not accurate. We were literally competing for, remember, the PPE, the personal protective equipment. Governors, were looking overseas, especially to Asia, to see if we could get a supply. So that's a lot better now. Then we started competing on how we could get everybody tested. And now certainly we have the vaccination rollout, which overall is going well. But it's been a rough year. And, it's put into focus, Eric, a lot of inequities that exist. Access to health care, access to education, access to business opportunities. And so, we were in a fairly strong position prior to COVID-19, but I really think we've learned a lot, and Virginia will come out of this even stronger and will be a more equitable state because of it. So still got some work to do, but I'm proud of what's happened so far.
Absolutely. Governor, if you could, take us just for a brief moment, after COVID hit here a year ago, and as you talk about the battle for PPE and all of that, that seems like ancient history, but it was just a year ago. Take us into the Situation Room, the talks with your cabinet, just briefly, and how you gave your administration the charge to move forward to ensure that Virginia not only came out of this, but came out of it better.
Well, it's a great question, Eric, and it does seem like it's been a long time ago. But, when we started this, again, the first case being on March the 7th, we were meeting every day with our staff, my chief of staff, our communications folks, the emergency management folks, public safety. All of these people were involved, and we literally met every day and went over the data. I don't know if you remember, this was kind of interesting yesterday when I was out campaigning. I talked to some folks, and we were having press conferences every day, and which was a lot of work, but I think it was important to give Virginians accurate and up-to-date information. But yesterday I had a couple people in separate occasions come up to me and say, we really appreciate the press conferences you did. And so one of them said, I don't pay that much attention to the TV, but every day at 2 o'clock I knew you were going to be on the TV. And wow. He said I would stop what I was doing and listen. And so, like I said, we've tried to communicate with folks and make sure they have updated information. And I think because of that, Virginia has some of the lowest numbers of cases and also the lowest number of deaths. And so overall, Virginia followed the guidelines, and they've really played by the rules and tried to do the right thing. And I think we're in a much better place. I will tell you, interestingly, Eric, our economy, despite COVID-19, is really doing well. Right now, there obviously have been some businesses that have been hurt, like the hospitality industry, restaurants, hotels, entertainment venues, but the revenue coming into Virginia, a lot of people, during this did a lot of online shopping, people buying houses and cars, and so that's kept Virginia afloat. And as you know, we've talked about this before, but we've done a lot of work to diversify our economy. We had a plan called Rebuild Virginia, where we gave people assistance to keep their businesses going. So it's been a lot of work, Eric, but we've had a good team. And like I said, I couldn't be prouder of Virginians for really trying to do the right thing. And as I said earlier, we're going to come out of this a lot stronger than we went into it.
Absolutely. And, as I was driving into the radio station today, I picked up a family member from the airport, and I was showing them, our great region, and driving on the interstate, and I'm seeing the sun, I'm seeing all the people that are headed toward, the beach area and the like. And I started thinking, Virginia's reopening, and we're not just reopening, but we're reopening safely, doing the necessary things that we need to do to keep everybody safe. Talk about some of the efforts on your end and your administration that you've put into action and you're looking forward to get Virginia businesses open, schools, and higher education and the like.
Yeah, well, just to back up a little bit, I think people would be interested and remember some of this. It was really important when COVID began in Virginia to make sure people had access to testing and to make sure that we were doing that equitably and reaching out to, communities that perhaps may be underserved. And initially, the tests that we had, which were only, 50 to 100, we had to send to Atlanta to the CDC. And the turnaround time was like 10 to 14 days, and that made it very difficult for, our providers, our nurses and doctors that were taking care of these individuals. So, we really worked hard to make sure that everybody had the opportunity to be tested. And, we were testing 10,000, 20,000 individuals a day. So that went well, and we finally got the amount of PPE that we needed. Well, now what we're working on is the vaccination rollout, and overall that's gone real well. But I want your listeners to know a couple things I would emphasize. One is that we have 3 effective and safe vaccines: the Moderna, the Pfizer, and the J&J. And of course, the J&J is just one shot, and then you're done. And we've, had mass vaccination clinics. We had one there at Military Circle in Hampton Roads. Now individuals can go to our pharmacies. They can go to their primary care providers. We're also having mobile units that are going into various communities. So I really encourage everybody, Eric, if they haven't already been vaccinated, to take advantage of that. That's really going to be the way that we can get this pandemic in the rearview mirror. And as a pediatrician, I think that's what I did for probably 30 years, just down the street from Norfolk State. But the vaccination is available for those 12 and above. We anticipate probably by late October, early November, it'll go down to age 6 and then even lower than that. And, what we're seeing now is kind of interesting. We're seeing more teenagers being hospitalized. And we also know that, these teenagers can carry the virus. So I really encourage everybody out there to not only for themselves, but for their children as well. And I would just say as a pediatrician, we do feel that the vaccine is safe and effective. Now, what we're doing, Eric, to get the economy back up and running, we have a couple different avenues. And if anybody needs help with this, to let our office know, we'll let you know what's available. But we have the PPP loans, which are for small businesses. We also have a program called Rebuild Virginia, where businesses can apply for grants and money to help keep their businesses afloat. We've really tried to pursue education through our community colleges. We have a program called G3 now, where people can apply to go to community college without incurring any debt. So it's free tuition, and also help with wraparound expenses like books and transportation and child care. So we're really doing everything that we can to help people get back into the workforce. But the main thing I would emphasize right now, Eric, is just everybody really needs to get vaccinated, and we need to get, I know everybody's heard us talk about this herd immunity, but we need to get to around 70-75%. We're actually real close. We're at 68% of adults in Virginia have had at least one shot. So if we push just a little bit harder, again, and the houses of worship, our faith leaders, everybody's really doing a wonderful job, trying to make sure we reach out and communicate with people and let them know how important it is to get vaccinated.
Governor, you talk about vaccination, and I see where the confidence is going up in the great, what has been called the miracle in the vow. And when we look at the science. When you look at the science, look at the studies, it pretty much speaks for itself. And one thing that we noted, and I think that was also brought out nationwide, is that, the Commonwealth, we were fortunate because we had a chief executive officer, a governor, who's also a doctor. So it was not just talking from, talking points, but it's something, as you mentioned, as a pediatrician, you have intimate knowledge about it. Tell us a little bit about your time in the mansion and the campaign platform that you put out. A lot of people run on platforms. You got to have it. But it was a mission that you set out to accomplish certain goals. And as you come to the end of your administration, talk about some of those goals that you'll look back and say, I'm grateful that this is a part of our legacy, my legacy, and that we've helped to move Virginia forward.
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me bring President Obama into this very briefly, because that's one of the things that I have continued to work on. He put in place the Affordable Care Act, and he promised Americans that we would have access to health care. And, part of that was Medicaid expansion, and we've been able to do that because of the makeup of our House and Senate. And because of that, Eric, now 500,000 Virginians, that's a lot of people, have access to seeing a doctor.
Absolutely.
The other thing I just want to say about President Obama is that he, just like I do, he followed the science and the data. He's been very supportive of what we're doing, with the pandemic. And so is President Biden. It's just been so nice to have leadership in Washington that, number one, cares about people like you and me, and that follows the science and is committed to keeping us healthy. And, it was so tough, Eric, during this pandemic with our previous president who said things like putting disinfectants in your body and using ultraviolet light.
Right.
I mean, come on, give me a break. And so we were, really trying to do the right thing, and he was encouraging other things, and he made this political, Eric, which there was no excuse in that. And
right.
So, again, I got to know President Obama well. He gave me a lot of advice. I'm a big admirer of his, and now his vice president is our president, President Biden, and he's been really good to work with as well. Now, you asked me about what I wanted to get done, and, there are several things. I already talked about Medicaid expansion. That's been really important. Pam and I have been working a lot on early childhood education, and we've made a lot of progress, and it's in our budget, and now 3- and 4-year-olds in Virginia will have access to early childhood education.
Phenomenal.
That is just so important. It's an equity issue. It's also an issue about making sure our children all have an opportunity to learn and get a good start in life. But, Eric, you've heard me say this before. When one family has the means to send their children to early childhood education and another one doesn't, that's really what starts the gap between the haves and the have-nots. And if our children aren't reading by the 3rd grade, then they're at a disadvantage for the rest of their lives. So I promised when I ran 3.5 years ago that our children have access to early childhood education, and so we've been able to get that done. A couple other things I just will mention: expanded access to voting. Unfortunately, there are some people out there on the other side of the aisle that want to make it more difficult to vote, and we think that voting is the foundation of our democracy. So we got rid of the voter ID law. We expanded early voting by to 45 days, no excuse absentee voting.
Wow.
We're allowing people to use drop boxes, and so I'm proud of that work. Eric, we've also done a lot of work on common sense gun safety. We had that tragedy 2 years ago in Virginia Beach where 12 people lost their lives, and you all remember I brought the legislature back
Yes.
And introduced 7 pieces of what I call common sense gun legislation. Well, the Republicans left town after 90 minutes. And, Virginians said enough is enough. And finally, we got our majority in the House and the Senate, and we've been able to pass, some common sense gun legislation. So that's good. Making Virginia more welcoming and inclusive, that's been important to me. How we educate our children, how we, make sure that we talk about our history, our 400 years of history. how we've been more open to the LGBTQ community, the women's ERA, Equal Rights Amendment. And then, Eric, a lot of work, we talked about and we've been able to accomplish with criminal justice reform, raising the felony threatening large hold, the felony larceny threshold.
Yeah.
I got my words mixed up. And then, as you probably know, one last thing, and then I'll let you ask some more questions. I'm doing too much talking probably, but
oh no, you're fine.
Our marijuana laws in Virginia were written to discriminate against people of color. We know that people of color are about 3 times more likely to be arrested for using marijuana, 3 times more likely to be convicted. It ruins people's lives, and so that will be legalized come July 1st. So a lot of things we've been able to do, and again, I have a little bit more work to do, but overall, I'm pleased with our progress.
That is a list that I think any elected official, especially chief executive officer of a state or even the leader of our country, would be proud to say this is a part of what we're doing to make things fair. You may not agree with everything, but it makes things fair and equitable across the board.
Hey, Eric,
yeah.
One other thing I failed to mention that probably one of my proudest days was at Greensville Correctional Center when we signed the legislation to get rid of the death penalty in Virginia. And, if you look at our history in Virginia unfortunately had one of the highest rates of executions. That's not something anybody should be proud of. And also the majority of those executions were in people of color. And so that was a proud day for me to be able to sign that piece of legislation.
Absolutely. And I remember that day. We actually did a show on that because, again, a lot of things that have been happening here during your time period in the mansion, we've made national news and national strides, but not just for publicity purposes, but really to move people forward. And as I stated, equitably across the board. Yeah. Now, I will take a point of privilege here to talk about another highlight here at Norfolk State University, your support of not just the university itself, but also the innovative things that we're doing here, more specifically the Center for African American Public Policy, which your office has supported, the legislature has supported, along with which this show is part of the outreach of it. So your support for that, and where we look at various areas for research purposes, getting policymakers to the community to really talk about issues that are important to them, is a major key and major piece in order to bridge the disconnect between government and the community.
Eric, I am so proud of Norfolk State, and I've gotten to know Dr. J real well, and she's doing phenomenal work there along with her staff, and some really good programs there. Cybersecurity is something that Norfolk State has done a lot of work on, and just all the different programs that they have available now. And as you probably know, we're working together collaboratively with Centera and some with Old Dominion on a public health program. And I think that will really be helpful for Hampton Roads as well. So, like I said, Norfolk State is doing some really good things, and I appreciate your leadership there.
Governor, I can't believe, it's we're almost out of time, but, it's good to hear your voice. I know you've been busy. We haven't had a chance to chat in a while, but you're doing a phenomenal job. But before you leave, this Tuesday is the June primary here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We have the Democratic primary because, of course, the Republican Party held their delegate convention earlier and have their candidates who are going to run for statewide offices in November. But just in the last few moments, we have the offices, statewide offices and local, but we're talking state here, for governor, attorney general, and lieutenant governor coming up on June 8th. For those Democratic candidates that are going to represent the Democratic Party in the November general election. Talk to our voters and our listeners a little bit about the importance of getting out there and voting, if they haven't done so already, voting on Tuesday.
Thank you for allowing me to do that, Eric. I was in Hampton Roads yesterday. I started off in Hampton and then I was over in Portsmouth with Senator Louise Lucas doing some campaigning. And all of the things we've been talking about, Eric, have happened because we've elected Democrats to these offices. And you've heard me say this before, and I apologize if I'm getting political, but I'm proud to be a Democrat. And when we elect Democrats, good things happen in Virginia, and we cannot take any chances of going back. I mean, if it switched, if the party switched in Virginia, all of these things that I've just been talking about, whether it be access to education or criminal justice reform or voting reform, they would be at risk of, we would be at risk of losing those. And so I really encourage everybody to get out there on Tuesday and vote. And then, as you all know, we're going to have an election in November also. So make sure you get registered and, look at the candidates that are running. But anyway, it's really, really important to exercise your right to vote. And I encourage everybody to do that. It's safe now. They're going to ask you probably, if you go indoors, to wear a mask, especially if you haven't been vaccinated. But get out there and vote and make sure that we continue to keep our democracy strong. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Governor, it looks like we're out of time, but I want to thank you so much for coming on air with us here on Stay at the Water at WNSB radio station here at Norfolk State University. Congratulations on a successful administration and a successful time as governor thus far. And like you said, you still got 6 more months and a lot to do. So we're looking forward to you working with stakeholders, policymakers, and the community to move Virginia forward and make us stronger.
Absolutely. Eric, thanks so much for having me. You're a dear friend, and I appreciate that. And I look forward to getting back to 757.
I hear you. Thank you so much, Governor. Have a wonderful Sunday.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.